A brief diversion from the drawing halls of Manhattan and the dinner parties of Newport is taken in Close Enough to Touch, the fifth episode of the Gilded Age Season 2, which delves into the events occurring in Brooklyn during this period, particularly in the area that is now known as Dumbo. The Brooklyn Bridge's actual opening and the Russell family's interests are entwined in a plot revealed by the HBO series. The feat of engineering united the cities of Manhattan and Brooklyn unlike anything else. But as the Gilded Age, and particularly Larry Russell, Harry Richardson, reveals, the achievement of the famous monument was largely due to an unsung woman named Emily Warren Roebling. Following his split with the attractive widow of Newport, Susan Blaine, played by Laura Benanti, Larry's parents determine he needs to go back to New York City and assist his father in some way. George Russell, Morgan Spector, wants his architect's son to act as his proxy in handling the Brooklyn Bridge project, because he is much distracted with the impending union strikes in Pittsburgh. He informs Larry that the chief engineer for the project, Mr. Roebling, is not showing up. Although there is always hive of activity at his house, no one ever finds the man. Larry confirms that construction is still being done when he visits the little Roebling cottage that overlooks the famous Dumbo position of the Brooklyn Bridge. Emily, Mr. Roebling's wife, appears to be in command, nevertheless. When he confronts her about it, he affirms that she is an exceptionally talented engineer herself and laments the fact that sexism prevents her from taking credit for managing the enormous project in the wake of her father-in-law's tragic death and her husband's bedridden condition from casein disease, also known as decompression disease, which is brought on by bends. Is the Gilded Age correct, then? Was the Brooklyn Bridge the work of a woman? And how did the cast of the Gilded Age reproduce the Roebling residence in hip Dumbo today? What you should know about HBO's The Gilded Age and the Brooklyn Bridge is provided here. Born in 1843 in Cold Spring, New York, Emily Warren Roebling came from a family that supported her desire for study. She wed Washington Roebling, a civil engineer and the son of engineer John A. Roebling, who was born in Prussia in 1865. Emily's father-in-law began advocating for the construction of a suspension bridge to connect Brooklyn and Manhattan across the East River as early as 1857. It would be a bigger variation of existing suspension bridges he had built with success in Ohio and Pennsylvania. Following the passage of a law by the New York State Senate in 1867 that authorized the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, John A. Roebling was appointed head engineer. But as the elder Roebling was surveying for the project in June 1869, a ferry crushed his foot. Within a month of having his toes severed, he passed away from a tetanus infection. Washington Roebling, his son, was left in command. In 1870, construction on the Brooklyn Bridge commenced. Huge caissons, a type of watertight construction intended to be gradually submerged in water until the bottom reaches bedrock, were incorporated into the design of the bridge. After that, water is drained out of the building so that people can work inside. The East River's bedrock was discovered to be significantly deeper than first thought, which led to an increase in workers' cases of casein disease, often known as decompression illness or the bends. It was an illness that no one had ever heard of before. Studying the placement of the caissons, Washington Roebling repeatedly descended below and ascended to the surface too quickly, developing a crippling case of the sickness. Washington Roebling was bedridden by 1872. After studying engineering alongside her spouse, Emily Roebling quietly assumed control of day-to-day project management. She is thought to have participated in the planning as well as understanding her husband's intentions. Contrary to certain myths, she was not the project's only architect. It was more that she ensured the project was completed 10 years after her husband's passing and preserved his name associated with it. She is certainly deserving of praise, but so are her father-in-law and husband.